We can start now, Barni.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Pranam Guruji. Namaste to everyone. Guruji says, on the canvas of eternity, who decides where is the east and where is the west? Moreover, should you overlook the best just because it emanated in the west or the east? With that profound quote, Darpan Foundation welcomes you to Upanishad with Guruji Shri Nandkishore Tiwari, propounder, Sahaj Smriti Yog, and our host, Shri Vibhuti Jha, principal with Ashcroft Sullivan Jha, US. Guruji established Universal Forum for Human Dignity in the year 2002 and founded Darpan Sahasmriti Yoga Ashram at Urigam in 2018. Guruji propounded Sahasmriti Yoga system of self-realization along with Sahasmriti Kriya, an absolute effortless method to explore unexplored dimensions of one's existence. This is a path easy to follow with the busy family life. Under Guruji's guidance, Darpan Foundation is consistently working in areas of sustainable living, education, conservation of nature, health, sanitation, and enabling senior citizens to meaningfully contribute to society. Through the various social transformation projects, we have touched more than 5,350 students, 26 schools, and 42 villages. As India continues its battle with COVID, Darpan Foundation has expeditiously stepped in to combat the unprecedented public health crisis. Through our COVID management initiatives, we are equipping the primary health centers and triad centers with oxygen concentrators, personal protective equipment, and other essential medical supplies. To ensure the safety, health, and well-being of the very lifeline of the health centers, our frontline medical staff, we provided home-cooked nutritious meals during the lockdown. We are also conducting regular meditation cum relaxation sessions for the frontline workers to ensure their well-being. Karnataka Doordarshan, DD Chandana, had telecasted a special feature covering the COVID relief work done by Darpan Foundation. Our distinguished host, Shri Vibhuti Jha, has been at the forefront of driving Indo-US relations since he first arrived in the US in 1991. He is currently principal with Ashcroft Sullivan Jha, a firm specializing in EB-5 immigration program. Shri Vibhuti Jha is also executive director of Nalanda International, a non-profit organization founded to support non-partisan research, education, and informational activities in the fields of Indic philosophies, psychologies, sciences, healing paradigms, social and cultural forms, and spiritual practices. Shri Vibhuti Jha believes that Indian traditions need to be known around the world, including the values of transcendence, Sanatan Dharma, and teachings of Vedas. He is also a committed practitioner of transcendental meditation since the past 30 years. Shri Vibhuti Jha has contributed several articles to India's prestigious publication, The Times of India, under the column Gyan Guru, specifically writing about leadership, teams, and management. The word Upanishad is made up of two words, Upa and Nishad, meaning sitting beside. Traditionally, seekers looking for knowledge would sit beside Guru and ask their questions, and that is the very essence of our Upanishads. Maximum seekers, maximum seeking is our motto. The Upanishad conversations bring in remembrance of our glorious tradition and keeps alive the spirit of seeking. We are sharing our social media links and request all to visit our page, get to know about the continuous work we are doing, and if you like what you see, don't forget to press the like button, share, and subscribe. Today's topic is Purva or Paschim, East and West. Without further ado, let us commence today's Upanishad. I request the audience to disable the video and mute the audio right away so that we can listen to this Upanishad without interruptions. Before handing over to our host, Shri Vibhuti Jha, I request Guruji to say a few words.
Thank you. न कर्तृत्वं न कर्मण्यः न कर्तृत्वं न कर्माणि न कर्तृत्वं न कर्माणि लोकस्य सृजति प्रभुः लोकस्य सृजति प्रभुः लोकस्य सृजति प्रभुः न कर्मफल संयोग न कर्मफल संयोग स्वभावस्तु वर्तते स्वभावस्तु प्रवर्तते स्वभावस्तु प्रवर्तते उपद्रष्टा मन्ता भर्ता भोक्ता महेश्वरा परमात्मेति चाप्युक्तो परमात्मेति चाप्युक्तो देहेऽस्मिन् पुरुषः परः देहेऽस्मिन् पुरुषः परः. It's raining here in Bangalore evening, which is very good sign for a satsang. It's nature's cooperation with us. Nature is thrilled with us. And I am happy that Shri Vibhuti Jha ji is joining us from New York. Like a simple thing, here in India it is evening, there in US it is morning. But we are in the same moment. So change is there always, but it always survives on the bed of eternity. And every time the role of spiritual people is to relate that eternity with the contemporary happenings and contemporariness with that eternity. So that union, that feeling of oneness of the reality always stays in every heart, constant. With these words, I give this Upanishad back to Marlinji for further.
Thank you, Guruji. I hand over the session to Shri Vibhuti Jha.
Namaskar. Namaskar to everyone, especially Guruji Nandkishore Tiwari ji. You have given me the respect and honor to be the host today on a topic which is of global relevance for everybody. Global relevance. It doesn't exclude anyone. It's a remarkably inclusive philosophy enshrined in our texts, in our books, and it is inclusive of every living force, living life on the planet Earth. And thank you, Merlin, for a wonderful introduction. I really sincerely appreciate it. This is a true honor to be part of this entire conversation, which is much needed in the world today. Before I talk about Upanishad as a text, as a learning experience, I want to share with you an experience of a conversation, particularly since our topic is East and West. Several years ago, I was on a platform in a panel discussion on a subject matter of human potential. It was organized by one of the world's leading media company, and a London Business School professor who is a proponent of many wonderful thoughts. That person stated that in the West, our concept of happiness relates so much with money, that we believe that in our companies and corporations, we can give a hefty bonus to an employee and we believe he is happy. But we are so much wrong about that, because money doesn't buy you happiness. It is also important to bear in mind that it's better to be rich and unhappy than poor and unhappy. So money matters. That's why we have Lakshmi as a goddess, because it bestows success and prosperity. Prosperity measured in the modern terminology of monetary success. It is that way. We cannot deny that, because wealth, money, wealth, prosperity, these are words with which we are able to use the resources to do good for the society. And I suggested at that point in time that it is very important for the world to recognize that the Western concept of material prosperity, inquisitiveness, research must be combined with the Eastern wisdom that we bring about. That a true cooperation, collaboration, and mobilization, the three management words I'm using here, because it's only when we collaborate in the fullest extent of the term with people that a true success emerges. Success doesn't have a unitary definition. With this opening that the East and West have a lot to share, and especially true in a technology-driven world today, that we are so interconnected. We are so interconnected. The development of science and technology has brought us together, the knowledge and awareness. We know now that thunder and lightning doesn't happen because gods are angry. It's a part of a natural process. So our Upanishads are the teaching roots where all the wisdom and the knowledge is shared. It's very important to bear in mind. It's not a sermon on the mountaintop or a strict direction to do something. Follow this and you will achieve heaven or hell. It is a search, an inquisitiveness, an inquiry into the way of life. So my thought process today is that I will not quote you the texts of Upanishad, but in a conversation with Guruji, to relate it with all of us, that how is it relevant today, whether regardless of where you live and what you do. It is an inquiry, an individual inquiry to seek the truth, because universal truth is a virtue, and that's what is required. If we look around the world towards us, towards the world, we will find there is a truth which is undeniable. In between, there is confusion, lack of knowledge, or the prevailing ignorance. So Guruji, my first inquiry with you would be, in relation to this conversation, is that how do we relate that Upanishads, the teachings of Upanishad, is eternal. It is relevant at all and any given point in time. So today's youth, today's people who have not learned much in our school curriculum or college curriculum, they all have heard the word Upanishad, Panchatantra, Vedas, and everybody thinks they know. That's a very powerful thing to know. We all think we know because we read something somewhere, but the real knowledge is missing. So how do we relate it with people? How do we motivate people to become seekers of knowledge and applying that knowledge in everyday life? Because that's where we all live. We have lived to succeed. We are living to make our self-full realization and a self-actualization, which is the goal of the Darpan Foundation, which is absolutely true. Even the psychologists talk about the self-actualization being the ultimate goal. But majority of the people in the pyramid of life are always stuck in the bottom pyramid, where the seeking of food, life, shelter, entertainment, and joy doesn't allow us to elevate ourselves. So how do people achieve elevated equilibrium in their life to make things better for themselves?
Thank you, Vibhuti Ji. See, before I come to the question that how we can relate it today, little bit I will deliberate on why dialogues are important. In every given time, all the time, what we are doing is acknowledging something, reiterating it, and then asserting it if it is true. So this image of ourselves is always on the flux. It is always changing, and all the time we need to define ourselves. So that is how the dialogue is important. Now, any dialogue happens, then bhasha and paribhasa, two things we say. So that is where the difference arises. In one language, it means something else because the culture of that language is different. In another language, it means something else because the context is different, cultural experience is different. So anything takes meaning only when our bhasha operates with the reference of paribhasha, the definition. But here when we say in Hindi or Sanskrit, paribhasa has so many meanings. Per means that, the language of that. Have we reached to define things, demarcate things to that an extent that whatever we are speaking falls in line with that ultimate meaning. So paribhasa has very many stages also. Same thing, now we come to this we should keep always in mind that the paribhasa is not one thing only. This is layers and layers of the same words and it changes. In one context, same word means something else. Like we say, anything. In one sense, like we say, we are parmarth, we say the word parmarth. Then parmarth means generally we say doing some work, social work or something. But it means ultimate meaning also. Param arth. So if we are in the mode of dialogue, then parmarth will have another meaning also. But we are working in society, then that person is doing parmarth. Then we easily will understand that he is doing some social work. So that way meanings change. Sometimes that word, that parhit, and that we are under that mood of parmarth is considered not that way, the way it should be seen. People make it very lifted. So these all things we should keep in mind. Now, how to relate? Upanishad simply means, as Marlin said in the beginning, Upanishad means sitting beside. So that time when seers sat together and they like we are in the mode of inquiry, the questions came up. These were not individual questions, these were universal questions coming through individuals. Suppose now you are asking question. It is not your question you are asking, is for the universal welfare. That this is the question of the time. Same way when we sit and ask questions, then knowledge comes down to us. And that is how Upanishad, if suppose Upanishad happens, suppose this conversation which we are having now, it is documented and kept in the form of book or something, that may be called Upanishad tomorrow. So Upanishad have come up like that only, the real conversation. Now, the language of that time was so close to nature that even those words still reverberate with us and make meaning, make us feel meaningful. We can relate to that with those words when we are traveling through that language and through the history. Then through our parampara, we can different periods we define that in this period lifestyle was like that. Then we have that particular meaning of that word, and then we go further. Then we discover another meaning. So that way, then we feel, oh, we are very much grounded. So that is about text Upanishads. But Upanishads are not limited to those texts alone. Upanishad is what you and I are doing. That is what is relevant for all. That is how it becomes. Anyone who is inquiring mind, want to know the truth, and ask that question in contemporary language. What are his problems? How he has to relate with life? Then he should not have any hesitation that is the Upanishad. If you are sitting with somebody whom you consider that this person is more experienced in the line of thought in which I am an inquirer, so that becomes an Upanishad. It is not something else. So today, whatever situations people are facing, because everybody wants to be happy, healthy, and meaningful life. That is ingrained in human nature. And that spirit Upanishad have taught very well. Upanishad, now I am talking about text Upanishad, because all these conversation has been there between seers. Some consider themselves disciples, to some they assume that they are gurus. That is the only difference because of their experience. But none here considers oneself guru. That is the uniqueness of Sanatan Parampara. That a person is never considered a guru, but it is through by considering some person a guru that knowledge percolates down. And that is why this is the only living parampara in the world, which has never broken. This has been continuously here in India. In some way or the other, somewhere, some gurus and disciples are very well known, others may not be. But this continuation has never broken. So that is why we call it Sanatan Guru Parampara. So same spirit, if how today's generation get it that clearly, that they need not go to some text of the old days. They may begin where they are by asking their question freely without any fear, because once this kuntha comes, then it becomes difficult. So they should be very of it, because there are certain words which I find difficult to find the same word in English, and some which are called Sanskrit non-translatables. There are many that you can't translate. So that way, I am referring to this, that once you are free to ask question anyway, then your Upanishad begins. Then only you will slowly, when you come to this mode of happiness, because knowledge always, real knowledge always emanates in the spirit of wonder. Until you are physically healthy, mentally happy, there are no chances that real knowledge will come to you. Once you have crossed that, then physical ailments come to the body, doesn't matter. But once you should have touched the bed, then you tasted that wonderment, then it is a matter of sadhana. That is different. But this is minimum. So here we have balanced both the things, spiritual as well as material. We were now this some false notions are there. People think spirituality means you must be a poor person, then only you can be spiritual. It is not so. It never was so. You also hinted about it, and that is how it is. Prosperity, we say prosperity, but our definition of prosperity is dhana dhanya. That means the prosperity which comes not at the cost of nature. We do not make nature survive. We just take from nature like the child suckles his mother or her mother. That is the kind of relationship we want to have with nature. It is not that we want to exploit nature. हम उसका दोहन शोषण तो छोड़िए दोहन भी नहीं करते, हम उसका पैपान करते हैं कि इतना हमें चाहिए, उसके साथ रहे। वो भारतीय संस्कृति है, वो सनातन गुरु परंपरा है। उस तरह का ज्ञान, that kind of knowledge has to come when we begin by asking our real questions. So this burden, I am again saying, well, none should feel this burden that without knowing scriptures, they cannot begin their spiritual journey. That is the thing I want to say very clearly. Because many, as you hinted, many have this notion, they leave it for the old age or later days, thinking, no, when everything is done, then I will read the scriptures and then I will find out what spirituality is. And by the time it is too late. So it is not necessary at all. It is a spirit of inquiry, looking for the truth. That should be necessary. And that is where the Upanishad is. So Upanishad is simply when you have a firm conviction that you want to seek the truth.
Oh, that is so beautifully explained. I'm glad I asked you a question that drove and inspired you to say what you said. So this is truly great. And here is a very important question, because modern times, people are always racing against time to do things. And you said something very powerful, and that in our tradition, seeking of knowledge was with Guru. and Guru with whom you had margadarshan, a direction. Debate, dialogue, conversation, discourse, deliberation was essential towards learning. And that's what Upanishad is all about. It's about learning. But somewhere along the line, in our culture, in the 20th century or earlier, or some point in time, obedience became a better word. Every parent would say very proudly that my kid is so obedient to me, without understanding the implications of the word obedience, where a parent would tell their child, do as I tell you, don't ask questions. That had a very negative impact. It was completely anti prescription of seeking inquiry, making inquiry, learning more. You learn more by asking a question. So when I was going to Disneyland, when I went to Disneyland in Los Angeles, waiting for a show to happen, I read a line there of Walt Disney quoted there. If you want to see the world in a new light, with a new eye, look at it from the eyes of a child. Because that's the most curious. Child is the most curious. The child knows only one thing, is to ask questions, make inquiries. And that's what, as parents, is our responsibility to share with them the knowledge that is there. The point which I'm trying to make here is that the logical questioning, the inquiry, at some point in time, it disappeared from our culture. We forgot our Sanatan value. How do we bring it back? Because many a times we are told to follow. And that's not the Sanatan principle. Sanatan principle talks about universalism. It doesn't discriminate between people. It doesn't discriminate between gender. Doesn't discriminate in any sense of the term, because life of a human being is to be lived to its fullest extent. So at some point in time, we lost that path. So seekers, gurus, and traditions, they also went away. How do we bring it back?
Yes, very relevant for today's times. See, in Sanatan Parampara, right from before birth, Punsavan Sanskar, to every stage we have one Sanskar. That means the education which is needed, and that education comes through process. That some activity is also involved. So Gyan and Kriya, both are always connected here. Later, when we lost that knowledge, then it became ritual. Ritual means, in today's terminology, ritual means about which knowledge we have forgotten. The thing, Kriya, we are doing, but what is behind it? What is making us do? What is essential knowledge that makes this particular Kriya relevant for us, useful for us? That is tradition. But when it becomes dry, we forget that, then it becomes mere ritual. So we are not saying that rituals are good or bad. We say once you know what is behind, then only you can decide whether this ritual is good for you in this context or not, and what is behind. So every stage of childhood, we have something to educate. Now those sanskars are not happening very much. We have forgotten and we have turned them rituals. So we have burdened them negatively in the society. So first of all, that narratives needs to be cleared. And that is the responsibility of the intellectuals of the time, the ones who are knower of that knowledge, that they put it in the correct perspective, that in today's time, how that ritual has changed and how it should be performed today. And that is, then they will begin to learn the value of their own traditions. Because behind every tradition, it is science alone which is working. Those who know it, they know it very well. So that imparting has to begin with the parents. Unfortunately, first we have to educate the parents that they make their children fearless. Because without fearlessness, you cannot let them blossom fully to their full potential. So fear has to be removed. Now, yes, I understand there are certain stages, like at 3 or 4, 5 years child, you cannot start giving sex education. No, that will spoil the whole purpose. So every specific age is there at what point of time, what kind of knowledge should be given. But inquiry is forever. Even a 5-year child asks so many questions. You can't say you don't, generally people say don't ask, take this and sleep or do play with this. No, that should be encouraged all the time. That yes, they should be given answers and truthful answer. Even such answers are good. I do not know. Let us discover what it is. If child is asking some question and we really do not know, we can admit to a small child we do not know. We will discover what it is. Then the confidence will be much more in the child that now he is being treated at par. Because as spiritual persons also we consider every soul is full. It is only the manifestation, the way our body is, the way our mind is, that it takes time. Otherwise, every child born is same, potentially same empowerment is there. It will come out. It is like a seed which has to grow into a tree, and again fruit, and again a seed. So the process is like. So first we need to teach, means educate parents more, that they begin to understand clearly what their own traditions are. And here so many practical things they need to be clear. Yes, for maybe for their work purposes, they are doing something with their whatever language. Suppose we are speaking in English all the time when we do Upanishad, this stays in my mind whether I should go in Hindi or whether I should try English, because my real expression comes in my mother tongue. So, and that is true for everyone, not for me, and that should be the way. But so for some purpose, parents are teaching their boys, their children in English, it is fine, but it should not be at the cost of mother tongue. Then only that sanskar, that value will go to them. Then only it will be transferred. If we ourselves are not valuing our traditions, our language, then how can we anticipate that our children will value it? And we are saying we should value really when we know there are values. And now the whole world is craving for it. That speaks for its valuability. Because these, as we are saying, that these are for all. There is no east and west questions when it comes to the eternity. To give a contemporary example, now, for example, Vamdev Shastri is there, Dr. David Crowley. How can we say that he is not Indian in any sense, not a Sanatani in any sense, though he is born in West? So here, East and West, even when we translate, this is problem, live example. When we say Purva and Paschim, it means something else. And when we say East and West, it means something else. Purva means the earlier one. Purva mein aisa tha. Earlier this was like. So if there is a Purva, then only there can be Paschim. Paschim means Paschat, baad wala, later on. So it is on that scale, in that level of consciousness, this is not referring to the directions like East, West, South, North. It is saying about what comes first and what comes later. So our Sanatani's context and examples, and their mind will run there. They will not think of this worldly directions. But it is not that they are not aware of that these are East and West means direction here. But how to communicate these things? That my reference is not coming from here when I am saying East and West or South and North, because other also has to grow in that knowledge. So that was also in the Upanishad. There are references like Piplas and all that for years students were staying with Guru, but there were no communication. They said, if I feel like speaking, I will speak. If you feel like asking, you ask. But this association should be there. You at least must stay 1 year. Then we can begin. So there were ways of imbibing that knowledge. Now that cannot be taught through books. That is why the Sanatana Guru Parampara is unexceptional. There is no other thing in the world. So that kind of knowledge, first it has to go through the parents, that they know themselves the value. Then only they can open up their children. And they should not be shy of that. That these two things are clear. That for your employment or professional progress, you need this language. For your self-evolution, this language is better. This will lead you to the peace and happiness. Because as you said in the earlier question, that here in West, people are admitting that by material well-being, by so much wealth or money, you can't be happy. For happiness, you have to be with the truth. So here we can begin by telling our children truth. But first parents. So that's because I consider always the children are always open. It is the parents who are closed. So they need to bring that friendliness. If we are talking about the teenagers at this time or little older than they are 20. So they need to be given their open space so that they do not go haywire. They all start looking right way, because knowledge, vidhi purvakam, that is very important. That right way it is attained. Otherwise, one goes haywire. That is also there. So fearlessness is the key from where we begin at our home.
You said it's something very nice. It is wonderful to hear your thoughts. And you said the parents need to know more. And living in America, dealing with Indians here and elsewhere, the one thing which I coined a phrase, because we parents ourselves don't know much or enough about our own culture, tradition, and Purans and Upanishads, Gita, Ramayana, Sanatan. We have all merged somewhere along the line with the Western concept for pure survival. So I call them, all Indian parents, as India-born confused desis. That we know things, but we don't know. We think we know, but we don't know. As a result of which, it's a true phenomenon in this part of the world that majority of the first generation people who came here, they came from India with $6 or $8 in their pocket. They got into the way of life to make themselves materially successful. And thus, we became more like them than retaining our own identity. In India, we always say, you referred to a very sensitive and important concept of language. Just think about it. We are all talking in English language, although I've studied English in Hindi medium too. But we are talking in English language to explain the Hindu values or our Saswat values. The point is that India-born confused desis produced America-born confused desis. So ABCD ban gaye yahan pe, who today are Hindus in name only because the education and learning did not come from us. The text, the translation, the messaging, the narrative, that all came from the West. So when people tell me here that we gave you English language, I told them that India was a very prosperous country. Bharatvarsh was a very prosperous country, 26% of the world trade, and without English. So we let our traditions go away. But what is important is that now there is a material satiation happened in the West. People have prospered. The people are now heading towards self-actualization and are realizing that material is not enough, but it is essential. You also referred to something like non-translatable. And dharma is one such word. Sanatan is one such word that people have to understand. So I will share with you my translation of dharma when somebody asked me, what is dharma? So I said to them that intelligently speaking, intuitively speaking, and instinctively speaking, we all know when we are doing the right thing and the wrong thing. It's not right or wrong, but it is the explanation to the process. we all know when we are doing the right thing, good thing, and the negative thing. That's the meaning of dharma, that if you are going to do things which are right in the moment or right in the relevance to the context, it has meaning to that. And I carry this forward also because of the fact that we have become somewhere along the line brainwashed into believing in non-violence. It's okay. Non-violence is good. But even Bhagavad Gita and Ramayan's story tells us that yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata, right? And the subsequent shlok goes for that. We have to arise. Even Krishna, Arjun, Ram, they had to take shastra to protect dharma. Would like to comment on that?
Yes, you well said. There is no doubt about it when it comes to the Sanatana Parampara. Because Sanatana Parampara means what is needed for that movement. It is weaving eternity with the movement. So if movement's requirement is like demolishing some demon, then it has to be done. There is no two ways about it. But in other times, we practice that happiness comes when there is an atmosphere of peace. But there is no denial of that. And dharma can see is simple. Dharma means generally that like the water. We can explain it with the water. The water is there. And what is the dharma of water is to wet. So it can there be water without being wet? We will have to give it another name. Either we will, if we make it, then it becomes solid, then it is ice. There is no more water. Content may be same, but name is same. So what I am saying is the dharma of water, when that combination is known as water, then it's too wet. So if it is not wetting, then it is not water. Then it is not existing also. So once existence is one with the dharma, that is how the definition came, dharma rakshati rakshita, dharmo rakshati rakshita.
Yeah.
So dharma, because that is you yourself, that like water. So that way, if some movement's need is to raise weapon, then it is raised. There is no doubt about it. And dharmahinsa tathaicha is spoken all the time. It is not, but we do not preach that. We say maximum we should avoid. Like till the last moment, Rama was giving Ravan that chance that even if now, while they were in the war, that even if now you want to change your mind, you can change. So opportunity is given to change. That is kept open, but there is not cowardice. This Sanatan Dharma is never a cowardice dharma. It is all the Gita is all about that. The Shudra Hriday Dorvalyam Taktatosti Parantat. ये कहाँ से आपने कायरता आ गई? तो दिस इज ऑल अगेंस्ट दैट. तो कायरता तो नहीं, अभयम हम शब्द कहते हैं दूसरे तरह से, बीइंग फ्री, बीइंग नॉट अफ्रेड. ना हम किसी को डराते हैं, ना हम किसी से डरते. दैट इज द वे ऑफ लिविंग. So that is the Sanatana way. We do not say anything preaching mode, but we are not hesitant about it. If it is needed, it is needed. The dharma means it is one with in the mode of dharma. What needs to be done is done. Otherwise, that is how it is. Whole Gita is about that. That in the setting is like that. Who are the ones against whom Arjuna is fighting? His own brothers and family, but he is fighting for dharma, because dharma, acharan of the dharma makes it necessary for him to go that way and fight. So the war comes in the mode of dharma. That while following dharma, if it is war, so be it. If it is peace, so be it. So there is no doubt about it. If somebody is mistakenly thinking it some other way, then it is a mistake. That can no shastra supports it. Sanatan Shastra doesn't support it. Be it Ramayana, be it Mahabharata, or other Shastra, which are there, their pure knowledge has been discussed there also. And these are field, by the way. These are a spiritual field, but Ahimsa, when we say these are the Sahaj Smriti Yoga, we have divided in 5 fields for the clarity. The first beginning is love, that human being should have love towards each other. Then the second comes, then only you become capable of following dharma, because it can be told through all the shastras. Like when Arjun is fighting, it is not that he is not in love with his brothers. Love is a very high concept, high consciousness. He is always in love, but he is fighting because that is dharma. So after love only you understand dharma. I have written a couplet about it. Kevat kunti draupadi in jana kachumar. Dharma prem ka karma hai, karma prem ka dharma. So they kind of now Draupadi also. But she is saying, no, I have been wrong. So you need to fulfill dharma. You have to come up as warriors. You can't go like gods. So prem, then you understand dharma. Then when you follow dharma, then only the truth opens up. So satya is तीसरी सीढ़ी है उसकी. Then after satya only there is non-violence. That means in practical terms, non-violence is possible only when you are sitting in meditation. And others with you are also sitting. You have gone beyond words. शब्दादि विषयान त्यक्त्वा राग द्वेष विदुष्य. जब तक राग द्वेष है, संसार है, you cannot say that you are free from violence. There will be some. In every act, there is some amount of violence. While we are eating, we are chewing, there is some amount of violence. So these absolute things are not possible when we are relating. And they, the dharma gurus, dharmacharyas, or anyone, intellectuals, they should not shy away from that, admitting. It is not puncturing something. It is telling the truth that this is practical. And there are instances, like Krishna says, when this Takuni says, let us attack Pandavas in the night, because Pandavas, follower of dharma, will not retaliate in the night. Krishna says, no, if they attacked 8 o'clock, you attack them 12 o'clock, something. I'm just saying colloquially. That this is not for this, that under ritual you can hide, that is cowardice. That is where the difference between Yudhishthira and Krishna is. That is why Krishna is Purva Purush. He is not follower of ritual. He is a real person. So that is never the case. All the time, what is relevant for the movement by upholding your eternity, that must be done. And that is dharma. Whether it is non-violence or violence, that only how the situations open up, accordingly we have to behave. So that should be very clear, and that is what needs to be told clearly to every Sanatani, that they know their dharma as it is today. Because it is always, that means it's a role of, as I said in the beginning, role of the people, those who have assumed responsibility or those who have been bestowed that responsibility, and they are trusted for that. Tell them clearly, with no complications, that this is how it is. It is relating Avyakta Sanatana to the Vyakta Sanatana. And that is the role, that changing situations, how to relate in every situation. And things change, and that boils down to the behavior. And who knows it better than you? You must be experiencing day in and day out, because you are crisscrossing 2 cultures. You are there in New York, but you are connected to India so well. You are interacting with both people all the time. That how behavior changes in same circumstances, when you change a country or a city, the same behavior, mode of behavior changes. One example is there that while this corona was there, even the minister, when your foreign minister goes to UK, he is supposed to follow their protocol. How corona protocol, I'm saying. Usual days protocol is one thing, but they said, no, you have to get tested every day. Then you can't say that I have come from India, that's why I will not get tested. So there is so much thing to be discussed on that mode. What should have been the right behavior? Should he have said, no, I will follow what my country follows? Or should they have even asked him, because he is guest, to follow this way? Was this necessary for health reasons? No. This is how everybody's welfare will be asserted, that none would become a carrier of the virus. So many things. I am just throwing things so that it is understood in the course. So behavior becomes important, and that is where Vyakta Sanatana and Avyakta Sanatana comes. And that is where Sanatan Dharma and practical. So we are saying there is nothing other than Sanatana relating to the movement. And that is who Sanatana is there. And that is the role. And that is where there nothing is tabooed. Because we say in this creation, there is one stage we call existence and second is creation. So creation we do not consider ultimate. Creation is the stage, as I said in the beginning sloka, Srajati Prabhu, that when this creation happens, then the situation changes. Now you are in a different context. You have to live certain way. So in that mode, you how to relate that there is nothing taboo. It is only whether in that context it is right or not. Is it the way as it should be done or it is not? Everything becomes right and wrong because of that. So nothing is taboo, neither violence nor not violence. Yes, our tilt is towards non-violence and bliss and everything. That's why I said there are stages to love, to dharma, to satya, to non-violence, to sanatana, last stage. But upper two stages are just for when you are only all have become satsang, only you are meditating and there is enough material prosperity all across the globe. Because now the earth, we can't take only India. Now we have to speak in global terms. And that was the earlier also when this landmass was one. And the futurists are saying that again this landmass will become one. But that will happen, that when that happens, we'll talk about that. Today, what is reality? We are talking about that today everything has to be related globally. And that is why somehow we are trying to say it in English because others don't know that language. But once they taste the eternal values of the Sanatana Dharma, many will be attracted to go for Sanskrit or any Indic language because they are all related. And if you know one Indian language, you can understand so much about eternal Dharma, about Sanatana Dharma, because that language, all languages are some way related to one another. Many words are common. Somewhere, some word like somewhere Neer is like here in Karnataka. Neeru is common for what? Somewhere it is Pani in north, in east, Jal ho sakta hai. So, but they will be in Sanskrit. They all are, if somebody knows Sanskrit, they can know every language. They can communicate across India. So that is how it is. That once we put that relevance all the time, that there is nothing taboo, be it and reiterating again and asserting clearly and acknowledging as all these things, that nothing is taboo in Sanatana Dharma. Only context makes it right.
Oh, such a wonderful narrative to my material question that I asked you. But it is very important to know, you said something that my experience of living both on the East and West, and very actively actually, I became, if I may share with the audience here, I became a better Hindu, a better Indian, a better human after coming to America because I had to answer questions. So, in the process, I learned a lot because that's where I sought the path. I went to a guru to learn more, clear my doubts, and realize that unless and until we know things ourselves, we can't explain to others. Now, our principles, the Hindu texts, the Vedas, the Upanishad, everything, is providing us the knowledge of creation and how the universe operates. And in this global universe, we are all the same. We are a tiny speck. And I put it in a very, to use the Nirad Chaudhary's argumentative Indian style, I ask a question as an inquiry to anyone, that is Christian cancer milder, softer, and more palatable than Islamic cancer, Hindu cancer, or anything else? That's part of nature. If you suffer a disease, that's what you suffer. But what is also important is that how the Western media has accepted and adopted words like guru, mantra, and pandit in their normal dialogue. So on television channels, you will talk about guru, pandit, mantra. But what I notice is it has a negative slant to it. There is a definite slant to it in which the media portrays a guru as a deceiver. The guru told something which proved to be wrong. The pandit said something that proved to be wrong. The mantra was that which didn't work. There is a very clever, insidious way to hit at our belief systems. And I am objecting to that. I'm saying don't use the word guru, say the apostles. I don't say the month, don't use use mantra, say your gospels. Don't say the pandit, say your wise guys, So the question here is that we have to also rise and contest. And to that end, I remember Swami Vivekananda's message, and very rightly you quoted that in many ways, arise, awaken, assert, and act. Because no knowledge is sufficient if we do not act on it. So I would now, with the remaining few minutes we have before the question and answer comes in, because this is a topic that we can talk for long, and we need to talk a lot more because it has to be a continuous dialogue. So today I have focused entirely on the East-West, Purva or Paschim. And I say this because that was a beautiful explanation of Purva and Paschim. East and West is a Western description, but then both have to coexist. East and West, Purva or Paschim, they have to coexist in this world. And to that end, I would, request you to share with something that where can a person read one book to get some information, not the knowledge, but the information about Upanishad, Vedas, because our Vedas are very rich in tradition. There is so much to read. And the more you read, the more you realize how less you know. So the point is to be able to be a warrior. If to fight a battle with a sword, I don't need to know how the sword was made. So the warriors, we need to become warriors. And to become the warriors, what kind of book we need to read to understand and get informed as an aware person about our culture and tradition.
First, let me admit some things. That once we devise a spiritual path, then we are generally telling people that I will quote Sankaracharya here that why? Because he is our elder. That he says that for realization, you do not need book or books do not help in realization, self-realization. And after self-realization, of course, you do not need books. So, but having said that, so in our Sahaja Smriti, there is only 333 words, one page literature. The rest is practice because the real knowledge dawns upon it, hides between knowing and experiencing, doing it practice. Then only that confidence will come. So for real seekers of realization, I would say they should find their guru fast and should practice something if they want to realize. If yes, you said there is very much a necessity of intellectual warriors. I am recognizing that because in contemporary time, to set the narrative correct. For example, you name these words guru, pandit, all these words, how negatively they are being used in a context, in a derogatory. It happens in India also. Like if some say Mahaguru in Hindi heartland, that means you are talking that he is not Buddha. That simple words in common context. So what is the counter to that? It is happening all across. There, because when it comes, somebody else is abusing, we notice. But here also it is happening. For that, only knowledge will people have to raise their hand and say, no, this is not the thing. That will be sufficient, but they should say in as many occasions as possible. so that that literature is maximized. And the counter narrative is ready that this is the real meaning. And people out of, because it is not, they are not using derogatory word just like that. There is so much behind that the whole tradition you are demeaning. So that has to be told. No, this is not the meaning. You should be, and this word should be used right way because it comes from this param. So there is a whole lot of noise in terms of language posturing that is there. That is the difference of language, and that we have to negotiate. It is difficult point. I understand something entirely different. Like I was trying to say in the beginning, I had forgotten that word. I was trying for say paradhin. Like paradhin word in used as that you are enslaved to somebody, but it refers to paradhin also, that you are only under him, the ultimate. So it is the ultimate freedom also. So Sanskrit words have such meaning, just opposite meanings. And whole Gita is written like that, where it is like in oxymorons, because it is beyond words. It is words are meant to indicate something. All the dialogues ultimately we are doing is indicating towards something, that there lies the truth to realize if you are willing. That is the whole sum total of any dialogue, that Upanishadic dialogue especially, that we are indicating that there lies the truth. By realizing that, we become fulfilled. So only indication can be given. So in that sense, yes, we have to do a lot in this regard. But when it comes to books, so what kind of direction, I mean, which thing interests one? Somebody, they can begin with Ramayana and Mahabharata, that will be very good. Because all what we say this, not history, we say this itihas. And I define the difference between itihas and history. Event, if you narrate as it is happening, that is history. But who and how it happened, how it appealed to you, that is itihas. तो इतिहास मानव हृदय का इतिहास होता है. मानव हृदय के भावों में क्या चला उस समय, वो है घटना जो जिसका डॉक्यूमेंटेशन हम करते हैं, दैट इज हिस्ट्री. सो देयर इज अ डिफरेंस बिटवीन हिस्ट्री एंड इतिहास. और इतिहास, दैट इज हाउ दैट वाज वन मीनिंग. अनदर मीनिंग इतिहास, देयर इज ओनली लाफ्टर. Ultimately, they say happiness is inevitable. That is the meaning of the itihas. Because if you realize, then there is happiness. They say, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na sochati na kanchati sama sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktyam lavte param. So that means when you realize, and Ishwar Sarvbhutanam Hridate Arjurtishthati, that the God is within, the Ishwara within your heart, then you realize that you become exalted. Happiness. So itihas means that. So now who is going to tell all these things unless we are going under some guru, and slowly according to our progress we are handed over things. Now you go through this, now you go through this. So anyone, if they want to begin, I would suggest they can begin with Ramayana, with Gita, and with simple translation if they are not knowing language. But it is always good to go through a guru to understand the meaning, because they will tell you in today's terminology what is, how to relate it today, because you have to live it. In our literature, there is no prescription at all. It is all description. This people follow. So description has to be such that today's human being could understand it. Then on whole globe, it will be only this knowledge which will be in demand, because it is the simple most way. And that is where we say about Sahaj Smriti. We devised it only keeping in mind mostly the householders, because we saw it that throughout the globe, maximum number of people across religions is that of householders. So if something is relevant for householders, whether be they children, be their parents, or be their brothers and sisters, who's all the relations, I mean, what composes family, grandparents, and all. So that becomes relative in today's language. But to, as you said, because you asked them that, to ask for the others' benefit, so I can restrict myself only to, just to begin with, you can go through Ramayana and Gita. That is sufficient to know your traditions. And later on, you can begin with the Guru as the opportunity comes.
Thank you very much for referring to Ramayana and Gita, because that's my favorite thing too. I tell people that Ramayana, the narrative of Ramayana and Bhagavad Gita, that's where all the values you learn from there. The entire lessons of life lives there. That's where you understand the concept of Dharma. That's what I explain to the Western people, the Paschimi people. I won't say Western people, I will say Paschim people. Is that's what is important for us to know about the human values. And for me, I will tell you this, the study, not reading alone, but the study of Ramayana and Bhagavad Gita has given me knowledge, has given me inspiration, and it has given me tremendous energy to understand fellow human beings. Well, that's what life is all about. How we relate and interact with people. And Upanishads are brilliant methods of a dialogue and conversation to happen. So there is one thing which I will ask you, very simple, for the 21st century world that we live in. How do people who are living in the material world balance their work and spiritual life through the learning from Puranas or Upanishad in the modern world?
Yes. See, first of all, I will say that it is Sahajasmritiyo, which are 333 words. That is, you can begin with that, and your journey begins. Then, yes, all the stories which are there, be these in Puranas, be in Ramayana, Mahabharata, they are about relations and behaviors. And relations, when we say, we are speaking about human emotions, human understandings, everything human there. So in every relation, how we behave with one another, so many situations are there. Almost as it is said, no, that what is not here in the Mahabharata is nowhere else. The meaning of that is that the gamut of human relations, how human relations, emotions come out, this all description is here. So in every situation, we can find something or the other to relate ourselves spiritually. And then, of course, in the contemporary time, we can take the cue from there, and we can behave that in this situation, what is good in this situation. So between this, as you mentioned, the Lakshman Rekha, so between Maryada and Lakshman Rekha, if Ram puts the line of Maryada, then Lakshman puts the Lakshman Rekha. So in between, all the Shastras are there that way. So we can definitely, by relating to the stories, we can imbibe virtues, that how high thinking our ancestors has been, and how we have always upholded the value. We, in dire of the circumstances, we lived for our values. That is where Dharma becomes one with life. Here, it is never considered anything away. That's why we call it way of life. And way of life in what sense? In proximity with nature, because that is where the difference arises. And the ones who are in very many professions which are adding to the development of the world, they should take a leaf from it. That difference arises when in Indic traditions, we look at nature, when we look at it as in the mode of milking it, like a child. Not they are not exploiting. So that difference is there, and those all values, that alignment we find in all our Upanishad, Puran, Darshan, anywhere you pick up, you will find the same thing being reiterated, acknowledged, and asserted. But how to see it, if we have a guru, it becomes easier to understand. Otherwise, it is ocean. One gets lost into it. But nonetheless, one is in the ocean, but getting lost, that feeling. Even in goodness, when you feel I'm lost, still you want to find your location. So that is the in today's term, the utility of a guru, that your location is made clear, that vis-a-vis your knowledge, where are we? So that way they can help by knowing the relations in all the scriptures. There are ways of mentioning. There are descriptions, I say. There is no prescription. According to our capacity, we can take that this much we can uphold, because everybody's dharma is according to one's capacity. So capacity is enhanced through yoga this way by going in satsang. Our capacity increases, our potentiality blooms fully. But whatever our capacity, we can uphold that and move on by taking cue from any sastras. All literature is fine. And wherever there is a prachep thing, that also there you need gurus. Because so much in this period which you mentioned, where we were not rulers, indigenous rulers were not there. That time, so much literature has been polluted. So many things have been inserted into it. So that clarity one can find with the guru, that what is prachip here, what is interpolated here, what is real. That is almost, unfortunately, in every shastra, in some or the other amount, except Gita, it is there. So that is another thing one should be there. With that,
I have sincerely benefited and enjoyed and feel blessed with the conversation that we have had today. And I sincerely believe that everybody else has. As instructed by Madam Sam Merlin, I will hand over the conduct of this event today to her to pursue the path of Q&A, dialogue, discourse, and deliberation. So Merlin, all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Shri Vibhuti Jha. Now we move into our question answer session. We have received many questions, and of course, both for Guruji and Vibhuti Ji. So we will take up as many as time permits. Moving to the first question, it's for Guruji. हमें तो बस तैयार होना होता है संभवतः ज्ञान प्राप्ति हेतु, वो तैयारी क्या है और कैसे करें?
So 3 things are needed for that preparation. 1, human birth, inclination, and proximity to the guru. These are the only 3 things. So already, who is asking at the human birth is already there. Human frame is there. Inclination is there because the question is being asked. That inquiring mind is there. Now, third thing is make it intense, and then we reach it to the guru. And once we do satsang, it is not that we go and this is guru. No, you go how you know that this person is a guru. You go so many times, do satsang. Every time, if you are satisfied, feel peaceful, more open, observe changes within your person. And then, if your heart says, then begin your journey. And that is the preparation. But intensify your inquiring spirit. It will lead you on its own course. This is how it is.
Thank you, Guruji. The next question is for Vibhuti Ji. This is from Girish, our YouTube audience. Were the ancient ways of Western civilizations, like say Red Indians, Egyptian civilization, spiritual in nature, like what ancient Bharat was?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, because that was the time when they were all with nature. I mean, there was a recent discovery, finding of, I read only yesterday, that how they lived along with nature. The entire Red Indian, what they are called Red Indian, their entire philosophy is so much based on nature. It's only when the Western materialism crept in, the dominance, control, that became the annihilation of those who were not fighting. They who did not fight, they fell to deceit and all that kind of thing. So that's why it is important for us all to stand up, protect and defend our own cultural tradition. Otherwise, there is always a barbarian at the gate to destroy us. We have to rise to protect our Dharma. There is no option on that. He's right.
Thank you, Vibhuti Ji. The next question is for Guruji. Do we have a choice in our birth? If someone chooses not to be reborn or is not born again without their choice, are they considered to be liberated? What is life for some without rebirth?
These are spiritual stages. First, why we are here? Because there is karmic background. That is why we are. So, option of not being born again comes only after liberation. Then you have done your account clear, and you have moved to that state of realization. Then this question will automatically be answered to you. Before that, it won't make any sense, howsoever so-called eloquently I try to explain it. It won't make much sense. But this much is there, that once your karmic account is there, clear, and you realize, then there are choices you can make. Whatever is to be made. There is this option, because about God we say, Yaddapi samne rag karoshu, gahaina papun gundoshu, tadapi karai sam visham dehara, bhagat abhagat uday anahara. So divinity behaves like that. It considers everybody even. If that has a freedom of incarnating, then that is given to you and I also. But we need to reach there, realize that. So it is Shastra somewhere that you can have that choice, but first you say, like if you have taken something from the money lender, then we will not let you go without paying back. So that has to be done even, then you can move definitely. And life is exactly this.
Thank you, Guruji. The next question is for Shri Vibhuti Ji. How do you think the West has been able to make an image of being a progressive and modern society, in spite of committing horrendous acts in the past and even today, while we as Indians, in spite of being way modern in thought and action, have not been able to build a strong, positive image for the world?
That's my favorite topic. I talk about it all the time in my TV program and elsewhere. The world is all about narratives, how the story was told, what the narrative was built. So the West has built the narrative. We have not. So when I talk to my Western people, it's a Q&A, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, is that people tell me, because when I narrate to them our way of life, our philosophies, they tell me, why don't you tell us about it? We want to know. And I say, that's where we forgot, that we have to learn as well as impart knowledge. If you just sit knowing what I know, then I'm a frog in the well. I don't know what's happening elsewhere. Why would anybody bother to know you if you don't tell them who you are? What are we doing today? If we did not use technology, we would not be having this conversation. It is important for us to carry our story, our narrative to them in a dharmic way, not in an argumentative way, but asking a very simple inquiring mind, having a simple inquiring mind. And my favorite one is, as humans, we are all just the same. Every man, every woman has the same designated body parts and an electrical wiring here that allows us to do things the way we want to do, right? There is no difference. We are all the same. So it doesn't matter who and what you pray to, but what you do that defines you. And I gave a very simple example to somebody that I may or may not pray, say for example, but if I save 5 lives, am I not God's representative for those people? Or the one who killed in the name of God? Who is the true representative of the people? We have to begin to assert ourselves positively, confidently, and share that part that men, women, all living forces on the planet Earth have a designated role to play as enshrined in the wisdom or as provided by God. I can't be snake and snake can't be me. Let's be very clear about that. But so we have to have everybody performs a role in the ecosystem, and we are all the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Shri Vibhuti Ji. The next question is for Guruji. What is the purpose of this creation?
Yes, this question should come because it is existential question. So first we have to know who is asking this question. It begins with there. It sounds simple, but it is very layered question. First, we have to know it is in one word. If I say anything I say, you will take it as a preaching. This is the last thing I want to do. I say it should be in the descriptive mode, that you come to see when I say this is how the creation is. That is the purpose of the creation. This should come through everyone's experience and realization. Then only it is called the realization. So it begins with oneself. What is your purpose? Your purpose, if you go to simple begin, that you want to be happy, first thing, that you don't want your body to have ailments. You want to be prosperous. Simple things, material. Now, when you are materially, then you are one with this creation, then you become free from it. That is a first degree of liberation. Now you can look for the meanings of life. Then only you have the chance to look. Then you have become free from. Then you have become a living, liberated one. Jiva. Then we start pondering over this question, and then we sit in meditation and do. Then we find this creation is just beauty spread. This is truth in spread, because it has been called truth and untruth both. Na sad na asad uchyate. We say, since there is no time, we start talking about that. When you sit with the Guru and speak, it will be difficult for you to prove your existence, that you even exist, which you just take for granted that I am there. So in higher terms, it is only realization. When you realize this creation has come out of this. It is expression, this whole creation or universe we call this is Satchidananda. That it is in the spirit of bliss, peace, and happiness and knowledge. That is how it is. So that is its purpose, its own purpose. That the which is our purpose is the purpose of the creation. It is same. There is no duality. It is same only. But it has to be realized. Mere intellectually understanding it will not work. It may give beginning. That is why in Sahaj Smriti, we have made these terminology very simple. We say understand, then experience, and then feel it. Simple words, so many stairs are crossed. So that way you can understand, but without experiences, you will not be fulfilled. So when you are ecstatic, then only you can see that creation is also dancing. Like the Atma is in the Paramatma, like a fish is in the ocean, like that. Sukhi means jahan neer agadha, jim hari sharan mein ko padha. That the fish is happy when the water is in it. So when the creation you become and you see it within yourself, and then you see that in existence, so then you become very happy, exalted. As you are infinite, you are immortal, you are eternal. And that is when you see that this purpose is just for the happiness.
Thank you, Guruji. Our next question is for Vibhuti Ji. Can we challenge the doctrine of discovery followed by the Western world and reclaim our glory? Like Sayanacharya established the speed of light much before Maxwell. How can we establish it globally and officially?
To use the Nike sports slogan, just do it. So the question is, as we do it in our knowledge system, you don't have to prove others wrong. Just be yourself, and you do the right thing. So it's a very long answer, can be given a long answer in this, but The discovery is there that somebody propounded a theory. So if you want to prove it wrong, then try to prove it wrong. But the question is essential, very a deep question. Have we done enough to propagate our own? The answer is perhaps no. The knowledge exists, but we have not taught it to the world. We have not shared it with the world. We have not had a debate, dialogue, discourse, and enlightened conversation. That's why our thought processes, as the world is knowing it, believe it or not, they are learning from us, not because we are teaching them. This is a very important thing to remember. They are learning from our literature. We are not teaching them. And that's what is important for us. Very important question, very relevant question. And that we have to become knowledgeable ourselves to be able to teach. Today, Guruji is able to share the cosmic knowledge and the wisdom is because he has understood, he has learned, he has taught, and he is a guru. He is not the modern coach. Let's not confuse the word coach with guru. Our tradition of guru is very different than the coach. So let's bear that in mind. And I would say, learn it and espouse it. If you don't do it, who will?
Thank you, Vibhuti Ji. Our next question is for Guruji. What happens if everyone obtains enlightenment? Then will the universe come to an end?
That is why I say, even today, in this moment also, for some it is existing, for others it is not existing. So when you say creation, it is this thing relative according to one's realization. So when you are saying yes, when all are this, yes, we call it Mahapralaya. It is not that description is there, right? But it is realization. Or then it's when we become free, Bhavsagar Par. This is another word for that only. That once we, in our knowledge and realization, we come to this realization that it doesn't exist. What is appearing to be, it is just mere appearance. On the surface of eternity, it is just a ripple for some time. And that we know very clearly, like you and I, it is a few years business here. We know it very clearly. So that way, while we are having this opportunity we call human life, if we can realize, then it becomes real. And that is why we call human life an opportunity, that you realize everything about the creation, that how it is. Yes, when in light which we see, you can see that way also, when it is fully lit, whether anything existing or not, in the light. Yes, if you because tamsa parastat, that it goes beyond that. Reality also is the light, but this is not this material light. It is much more refined. So that alone exists. All the time that alone is existing. For some, this creation is also there. And once they cross it, that doesn't mean that they are living and they cross it that they'll die. No. They realize it's the real nature. So whether it exists or not doesn't make much difference.
Thank you, Guruji. So with that, we are concluding our question answer session with the limitation of time. So we would like to thank Guruji and thank Shri Vibhuti Jha for this very engaging and very insightful Upanishad. Thank you, audience, for being wonderful as always. Until we meet again, namaste.
Namaste.
Oh, sure.